The river stink came up from the mudflats at dawn, a low, briny breath that seemed to slide through every open arrow slit of the Tower of the Hand and settle along the floors like a damp animal. Ned Stark stood in the solar with the shutters wide, letting in the noise of King's Landing, the hawkers, the iron-rimmed wheels, the yaps of curs, the cry of gulls that had lost their way to the sea, because anything was better than the scent that clung to the city once the sun had time to warm the stones. He had slept poorly and not long. The southern heat was already prying under his skin, and the colors were too bright by half after the long gray ride down the King's Road. Banners, awnings, fruits and baskets, the river a sheet of hammered brass under a pale morning. He watched the city wake and told himself he had known worse. He had held a sword in his father's sight and taken a man's head for breaking the law, and his hand had not trembled then. It must not tremble now, in this place where he was expected to do the same thing without steel and on a larger field. He was dressed for the council, sober wool and leather, a pin of worked metal at his breast, a hand clenched and open again into a palm. He rubbed it with his thumb as if the work could heat it. The pin was heavy. It always had been when Robert first set it on his doublet years ago, and it seemed to have gained weight as soon as he drew near the Red Keep. He had brought the North-South with him, Jory and Tomard and the rest. But the North was a poor shield against double doors and soft carpets, against the kind of words that drew blood and left neither stain nor bruise. He wished for a wind that smelled of pine, for the silent white of Winterfell's first snows, for the faces of his sons and for the old gods under their rustling leaves. The small godswood they'd given him here was a clump of foreign trees and a pale, sickly weirwood with its heart cut out long ago. The ground dry, the pool a trickle, as if the gods were a tale people told over wine and forgot when the cup was empty. Jory watched from the door, hands folded, face grave in a way that made him look older than his years. He had shaved poorly, and a nick along his chin was a thin red line. "You have rested little, my lord," he said when Ned turned. "Rest enough," Ned answered. He took a breath that tasted of the river and the dust of the yard where the household guard had drilled before the sun. "We go to council with the first bell. Before that, we have a different errand." Jory's eyes did not shift toward the passage that led to the Hand's private stair, or toward the second door where two of the king's own guardsmen stood with the white cloaks folded over their arms. He had a way of standing that said he could be a spear planted in frozen ground or a man moving through a crowd without touching a single shoulder. "You have but to say it, my lord." Ned lifted the pin half an inch. It brightened as if it had found the light it liked. "This gives me authority in the king's name. It will have to suffice. Fetch Tomard and Cain and Harwin. I want them quiet and ready. Varys will be there already." Jory's mouth was a line. "Varys never sleeps. Nor does the city," Ned said. After Jory went, Ned stood a little longer with his hands on the stone sill. Reluctance is a word like any other, easy to say and cheap to spend. But the thing itself could be as stubborn as winter. He did not like this path. It did not lie straight, and every bend was hidden by reeds. He would have preferred to ask the man to his face, preferred the chance to look into Peter Baelish's eyes and see what lay in them besides mirth. But he had sat in this room in the dark while Catelyn told him what she had seen and what she had heard, her fingers cold around his, and he had watched the way she wrapped her cloak tight at the mention of the knife that had nearly ended their son's life as he lay helpless. A thin knife, a beautiful thing with a hilt like smoke and a blade that did not scratch. Peter's words and Varys's whisper had crossed in the air between them, and one of them had been a lie. It did not matter which one, only if he could hold them both long enough to weigh the truth in his hand. He had not known he would find Catelyn here, in this soot-colored city where all the stones were smooth and treacherous. He had not known how much he would need her face, even in its anger and fear. She was back in the little house in the Street of Silk now, under the watch of a woman Varys had sent, with a narrow bed and a narrow window and a knife of her own under the pillow. He would have liked to keep her in the tower, but they had decided together that she was safer in plain sight if she could be hidden there, as strange as that sounded. The South had the talent of making right feel like wrong and necessity like a game of hazard with too many hands in the cup. He heard the low footfalls of his men on the stair before he saw them. Jory came first, his sword belt loose to keep it from knocking. then Tomard, heavy and breathing through his mouth as if he had just come up from underwater, and Cain, dark-eyed and quiet as a cat, and Harwin long-limbed and hungry-looking. There were others he could have called, but those names were old names to him, men from Winterfell who would know where his left hand was without the need to see it. "We leave by the postern," Ned said. "Keep your eyes whole and your tongues behind your teeth. If any man asks what we are about the king's business. And if the king asks," Tomard said as if the thought had come to him as a jest. "Then it will be the truth," Ned said. They moved through the tower like a draft through a shuttered room. A maid peering around a corner saw the hard faces beneath their caps and vanished as if into the stone itself. The postern was a door with rust creeping up its iron strap hinges like ivy, and beyond it the yard had the look it wore too. And sleeping and waking, a scatter of chickens, a boy with a pail, a knight with his hair half-braided swearing in a soft voice at a squire who had knotted his straps wrong. The sky was a pale blue dish with a crack in it where clouds were beginning to gather toward the west, and Ned thought if the gods were kind there would be a sea breeze by noon. The gold cloaks were changing watches at the outer gate. The yellow of their tabards hurt his eyes. Men raised hands to mouths to cover a yawn, and the yawns spread like cats. None troubled them. They crossed the drawbridge, and Ned saw the city opening like a book he did not want to read, page after page of roof and alley, stair and arch. The striped awnings of brightness to keep the sun off men's heads and draw them under as surely as shadows. It took no talent to imagine where the money had come from for so much striping. Peter Baelish had fingers in every coin jar in the 7 kingdoms. So the tale went, and Robert laughed because he did not wish to look down and see his boots sinking into the sums that had been spent on tourneys and wine and silks and belly filling. Ned did not care for laughter that was used like a bandage to cover rot. He had seen rot at the root of a tree, and it was a patient thing, happy to wait in the dark until one day the trunk gave way with a sound like a man ending. They went down the hill slow because the streets were a pack of dogs chasing meat. Ned could feel eyes. Some were soft, some sharp, some like fish eyes that saw all and nothing together. The street of steel had already lit its forges, and each door was a mouth breathing black, and each man inside a red shadow heaving. A sword is an honest thing, Ned thought, but the hands that hold it are men's hands, and no iron remembers the oath that shaped it. He had no time for the long look he would have liked to take. The council would be waiting. Pycelle would be wheezing. Renly would be smirking in that easy court way that made him popular with ladies and men both. Varys would have folded his soft hands and found a vantage point from which to see more than any of them, and Baelish would wear a smile as if his mouth had been made that way in infancy, and perhaps it had. They climbed again, past a perfume seller who stood in his own mist, past a fat septon scolding children into a septri with a bunch of willow in his hand. A boy ran ahead of them bare-legged, calling out crusts for sale as if they were the only bread left in the world. The Red Keep grew large in the corner of Ned's sight with every turn, and so did the work he had set for himself. He allowed himself a moment to think of Robert and the way the king's face had settled like a man putting down a thing he loved that had become too heavy. Robert would not like being told his coinmaster was a liar. He would like less being told anything that tasted of duty. But Robert had known him when they were boys, and each of them had ridden where the other rode and eaten what the other ate and drunk the last swallow without asking who had the first. If any man could put a thing plain to Robert, it should be Ned Stark. He prayed the gods would make it so. They did not go to the small council chamber at once. Jory took them by the kitchen yard and then through a narrow passage that smelled of tallow and old smoke and up a stair that turned left when one expected it to turn right. Ned had learned such paths at Winterfell because Winterfell had layers like a midden or a hive, a thing that had grown, not been made. The Red Keep was all angles to his eye, the gigantism of a place where a king had said let there be a hall and there had been one. Let there be a tower and a tower rose. Yet even great things had seams. Varys had sent word where Baelish would be at that hour, and Varys's words were not the kind that went astray. They came out into a yard where a trellis ran along one wall and Jasmine tried in vain to soften the stone. 2 white cloaks stood there by a door like an ordinary door in a common house. Ser Boros Blunt was one of them, barring their way with a face that had the look of dough left too long in the sun, and at his side a younger man with pale hair that would have been fine if he had not oiled it till the strands clung like the skin of a sausage. The look that crossed their faces when they saw Ned was a look he had seen on the faces of such men often in his life. One foot on caution and one on vanity, not knowing which would be the wiser ground. They bowed to the hand, because that cost them nothing. Ned nodded. "Brothel in there?" Ser Boros said unnecessarily, his lips twisting with a satisfaction that would have suited a less holy place. "Our queen thinks it wise for such houses to be watched. My errand is with a man, not a house," Ned said. "Open the door." They glanced at one another. Ser Boros made a slow show of looking up and down the yard, as if an order might have fallen from the air. "This is a king's business, Lord Stark," he said. "All brothels in the city are the king's business when the queen says so. And all treasons are the hands," Ned said. "Open it." The younger one, whom Ned did not know by name, flushed pleasingly as if his blood were simple and close to the skin. He started to speak, but Ser Boros touched his elbow, and the door was opened. It smelled of warm rooms and perfume and the kind of laughter people think is cheap when they are sober. There was no one to be seen in the first passage. They came to a room that had been arranged to make men forget there was daylight anywhere in the world, the draperies deep and the corners full of shadow. Peter Baelish was there in a chair with his legs crossed and his hand drumming lightly on the carved arm. And there were two girls behind him in silk and smiles, and he did not look surprised in the least. "My lord hand," he said, as if the two words were the punchline to a joke he had told himself and liked. "I cannot say what brings you at this tender hour, but the house is honored. We can find you a lady with hair the color of the north on a clear day if that suits your mood." "Leave us," Ned said to the girls. His voice sounded like iron dropped onto stone, and they obeyed faster than he expected. When the door had shut, he said, "Peter, how cold that sounds," Baelish said with small hurt amusement. "You have not called me by my name since we were both younger and had less to carry. My father would be pleased to know it if he were not dead." His eyes, gray-green and mild, flicked to each of the men behind Ned as if he were counting game pieces, then returned to Ned with a warmth that was almost gentle. "And how is Caitlin this morning in her house of nettles? Or is that not news I am meant to possess?" Ned felt his jaw harden. "You possess too much and too little. In the king's name, I arrest you for perjury and conspiracy, and for withholding from the hand lawful evidence concerning an attempt on the life of my son. You will come with me now, Peter Baelish." Baelish did not stand. He tilted his head, a small bird considering a seed. Perjury is a word like honor. It is a mouthful and yet it dissolves. "Who is the court? Ned? You? And what was the oath I broke? I have said so many true things in this city that I can no longer taste when they go sour." "The knife," Ned said, keeping his voice level. "The dagger you told my lady came from the dwarf. You told her you lost it to him on Joffrey's name day. That's a story, Peter. It smells worse than the river. And your lady told you this, I think. Dear Caitlin, she has such a memory for the way things ought to have been said." Baelish finally rose, slow and revolted by haste. He smoothed his doublet as if the wool had offended him. "A man may tell a woman the truth and she may carry it to her husband in a basket and set it on the table as if it were bread, and he will eat it and be satisfied, unless he is you, who tastes the flour and asks where it was milled." He let the hand with which he had smoothed his clothes drift to the chair back. "Why not ask Varys? The spider likes to be milked." "I shall ask all I please," Ned said. "Now, my lord, your sword." Baelish looked at Jory and Tomard and Cain. He made a little moo of regret. "If I were to refuse, would you hack me down where I stand? Imagine the scandal. The small council would be smaller yet. The queen would be less than pleased, and Robert, well, Robert would laugh loudly because he laughs loudly at all things until they turn on him." He unbuckled his sword and placed it on the chair. "I cannot allow it to be said that I argued with the North before breakfast. I will come with you and we will speak. But I must say, because I am given to truth, that you are making a mistake. If I am, I will answer for it to the king," Ned said. "You will answer to the city?" Baelish said in the tone of a man telling someone the weather beyond the window. "Which is to say to me, and to the queen, and to whoever holds the purse strings of the watch. But let us not leap over steps. The first step comes now." He stepped forward, and for a moment Ned could smell lavender and something sharp beneath it like tin. Peter's face in that calm light was not handsome, but it was a face that knew it belonged to a brain and not a sword hand, and this pleased it greatly. "I am in your custody, Lord Stark," he said, and smiled as if at a private jest. Jory took his wrists, and Cain bound them with a strip of leather soft as a glove, careful but unkind. Peter watched it happen as if he were watching someone else being dressed for a wedding. The younger Kingsguard raised a half hand, then thought better of it. Ser Boros opened his mouth, then closed it. Ned said to Jory without looking away from Baelish, "To the Tower of the Hand," and Jory nodded, and the procession reversed itself with a different heart. Outside, the city had the look of a child awakened abruptly. Windows blinked open, shutters clapped. A dog barked urgently at nothing. The girls in the brothel's upstairs window had their heads together like pigeons making a plan. One of them called something light, and Baelish glanced up and made a face as if shrugging without shoulders. Ned kept him surrounded and his men close. It was not the fear of rescue that troubled him. That would be clumsy. It was that everything was the Queen's business if she said so, and there were more ears in King's Landing than there were leaves in the Winterfell Godswood, and some of them were no doubt turned toward this little play at that very moment. On the way across the yard, Varys emerged as if he had been waiting in a crease in the air. He had dressed in plum today with black piping as fine as hair, and he smiled with such sincere dismay that one might have forgiven him for whatever he had done this morning simply for the effort. "My Lord Hand," he said, and bowed. "Lord Baelish, my, save your geese," Ned said. "We will speak shortly." Varys folded his hands and inclined his head. "As you say," he murmured, and gave Baelish a look that could have been pity, could have been indulgence, could have been the last inch of rope given to a man before a drop. There was a stir among the gold cloaks when they saw the man in their midst, and Ned saw something pass from hand to hand among them, a whisper with weight. A bearded sergeant he did not know went pale in a way that was ugly to see on such a weathered face. When he reached the inner gate, Janos Slint himself was there as if he had smelled the meat on the wind. He had a belly like a wineskin and a mustache that wanted grooming, and his eyes were busy, picking over the scene like a man picking through a pile of small nails for two that matched. He bowed as low as a man with that belly could. "Lord Hand," he said. "Lord Baelish." The second was said with more care, weighed for effect and for whom might be listening. "What a surprise." "Not for you," Ned said. He let the words be hard as frost. "You will make no trouble in my yard." "Trouble?" Janos said, affronted in the way of men who make trouble as a trade. "We are the king's men, my lord. There is no trouble where the law is clear." His eyes slid to Jory's hand on Peter's elbow, to the strip of leather, to Peter's unbloodied collar. "Shall I send a messenger to the Queen? Her Grace takes interest in all matters of the city." A test proffered like a cup. Ned remembered his father standing at the top of the stair in the great hall with men calling up to him from the flags. Remembered the smell of rushes and the long dark banners. "The king will hear of it from me." He let the words be slow. "Not from any man who thinks his duty is to gossip. Hold your post, Lord Commander. And if I hear of any message flown from this keep on this matter that did not pass through my hands, I will take it as treason." Janos's mustache twitched as if it wished to leap from his face and run. He made a bow that was less deep than the first. "As you say," he said, "there were 1,000 as you says in King's Landing, and each of them was a promise to break a promise later." Ned did not fool himself, but the thing was done. They crossed the yard, climbed the stair, and Peter Baelish had his back to the Tower of the Hand as if the stone itself were an audience waiting for him to speak. The cell they had was not one of the black cells. Not yet. Ned was not Robert, and he did not make men gnaw on their own hearts with terror until they said anything to make it stop. It was a narrow place with a small, unglazed window admitting a square of daylight and a bench attached to the wall by iron rings. It had a stool and a pitcher and a folded cloth that had been cleaned yesterday. When they put Peter on the bench and fixed his hands, he looked at the square of light and smiled as if he were at a garden party. "This is homely," he said. "You will remain here until we have spoken at council," Ned said. Jory set a man outside the door and another at the foot of the stair. Cain took the pitcher and drank as if to test it for poison because he was the kind of man who would do that without being asked, because it was sensible. Varys would call it quaint. Ned dismissed them with a look, and they went. He stood in the doorway and looked at Peter, and Peter looked back, and there was a world between them. Two boys grown into men who had chosen different ways to carry the weight they had been handed. "You think me an enemy?" Peter said softly. "It is touching. She chose you once, after all, for a different game." Ned's answer was flat. "I think you dangerous." He did not say to whom. "I am a ledger with legs," Peter said. "Cut off my head and the numbers spill out. How messy that would be. And all the while the true cutthroats bind their hair with ribbons and smile at court. Ah, Eddard. This place will teach you things you would rather not learn. The first lesson is that there is no such thing as too early. The second is that those who call you honorable mean that you are predictable." He tipped his head toward the window. "Look, the square has shifted. Time passes." Ned shut the door on the words. Outside, in the passage, Varys was waiting again. He occupied stone as if it were furniture. "I had hoped you would not force me to hurry," he said to Ned, sorrowful. "Hurrying so often spills wine. We will speak in the council chamber," Ned said. "I had a different chamber in mind," Varys said. He spread his hands. "If you will permit a poor eunuch his preference. There are ears in the council room. It is a room built for hearing, as a hall is built for seeing. And there are mouths that love to move before they have thought what they are made for. Come." The room Varys chose was a narrow place above the kitchens, where the heat rose and deadened sound, and the fat of last night's roast still lingered along the beams. There was a table with scars on it like old battles, and a bench with a leg that had been poorly mended. Renly Baratheon was there already, with his green doublet unfastened at the throat and a smile that asked forgiveness in advance. Grand Maester Pycelle arrived late, puffing, the chain around his neck clinking like a galley with oars. "My lords," he wheezed, blinking at the setting, clearly affronted by the unfittingness. "Are we well?" "We are ourselves," Varys said gently, and made a soft gesture that bade him sit as one might an old uncle with complaints about the weather. "Your presence honors us. Our hand has done a hasty thing." Renly lifted a brow. "So hasty I did not have time to dress for the gallows. You have Baelish under lock and key, do you?" His smile had an edge now. "That will make the queen's breakfast sit sour." "If it sits at all," Varys murmured. Ned did not sit. He fought an urge to pace, a habit of wolves in a cage. "The master of coin lied to my lady wife regarding a blade used in an attempt on my son's life. He has made mischief with truth and falsehood both. I will have the truth of it out of him while we still have a place to put it, before every whisper in the city knows our business." "Peter lies," Renly said, "but he also tells truths. That is the trouble with men who find sport in it. How do you propose to tell one from the other, cousin?" "With a sword, with silence," Ned said. "He will have to work harder when he speaks to men he cannot buy or bed. I have set my own guard. He will not be loosed by a word from the queen, not without the king." "The king is hunting this morning," Pycelle said, as if this were a medical condition. "A boar, I think he said." He blinked and seemed to find his comfort in chronology. "Yes, a boar. He was in excellent spirits." "Robert is always in excellent spirits when the spirit is wine," Renly said. "Still, he will not thank you for putting a rotation in his small council while he's away seeing to his PL. Eggers. Littlefinger feeds him coin the way a nurse feeds gruel to a fat babe who never knows what fills his belly or why it empties. My brother will feel himself pinched and reach for a knife." "Let him reach," Ned said. "I have no fear of Robert's knife. It is the knives behind his back that trouble me." He looked to Varys. "You and Baelish cannot both be telling the truth about the dagger." "Ah," Varys said, fluttering his fingers by his cheek, as if scattering a flock. "Truth is a swan. It looks sleek until you see under the water. My little birds told me of the attempt. They told me a great many things. One of them was about knives and debts and wagers made at tourneys that should not have been held. The High Landlord of Coin may have lost a trifle. The imp may have won a trifle. Men lose and win such trifles every day. The child was still attacked." "And the dagger?" Ned said. He was aware of the heat on his face as if the kitchen were closing around them. Whose was it before the wager, Varys? Not in rumor. In fact, Varys sighed as if the request were unkind to his health. Things go through many hands. The king, perhaps, or a lord who sells the last of his father's bright toys to pay for a mistress or a rookery. A blade of that fineness does not sit long in one place in such a city. Say it, Ned said. Renly slouched on the bench and took up a knife he had no business taking up and traced its edge. Say it, Spider. Else our cousin will put your own soft little neck through a stool. It was in Lord Baelish's possession once, Varys said. He arranged his hands as if laying out linen. Before the tourney where the dwarf was said to have won it. He had it from the royal purse, as so many pretty things pass through the royal purse. He did not have leave to give it away, but such formalities are overlooked when men like the way gold spends. He told the Lady Stark a story. It might be true. It was at least not wholly false. Pycelle cleared his throat. His throat was a corridor and the sound rolled through it. My lords, he said, cautious now as a cat at a fish pond. It is not unheard of for misunderstandings to arise. Lord Baelish is a valuable servant. It would be precipitous to treat him as if he were not king. Ned finished for him. He had a sudden memory of Pycelle bending over a table in Winterfell with a letter that had smelled of beeswax, his bony fingers pinching parchment as if to squeeze the last drop of ink from it. Has the city forgotten what law is? The city remembers who keeps its bellies full, Renly said. He set the knife down with some care, which is why Janos Slynt will not easily be persuaded to let you move the man whose coin flows in such attractive channels. But your point stands. We must present the matter to Robert with your hand on it and a cast iron pot of evidence. Else we are no better than the Queen's creatures, hauling men to cells at our whim and crying, "For the king," as if the words made it so. I will bring the question to Robert when he returns, Ned said. Until then, Baelish stays where I put him, and we will take hold of Janos Slynt's leash. Renly laughed. If you can find it, it is hidden under his chin. But yes, something must be done to show the watch that gold is not the only metal in the world. A show of steel, perhaps. A review of the guard? An instruction to keep order around the Tower of the Hand and to look to their own appointments? A summons to the captains to drink your wine and listen to your words? Do that, Ned said. He had not slept well, but he could think. Men were men. You set them in a room and fed them and spoke to them firmly, and there was a moment when they were willing to declare themselves, if given a table at which to do it. I will meet the captains after the second bell. When the king returns, we will go to him together. Varys, you will put a bird in the queen's ear first if you must, and you will tell her only this. The hand has arrested the master of coin for questioning in a matter touching the safety of the king's peace, and he will be examined with the king's leave. Ah, Varys said, making a face like a man tasting milk that is not as fresh as it ought to be. It will make her angry. She does not like words arranged so that she must walk through them to get where she likes to stand. But yes, if you will forgive me, I will fly now upon my little soft feet. Fly, Ned said. When Varys had glided away and Pycelle had labored after him with the air of a man chasing his appetite, Renly rose and stretched like a cat that has decided to be human for an hour. If you mean to stir the pot, cousin, stir it quickly. The queen would be a fool not to move a piece in reply, and she is many things but not that. He paused, and for a second the careless mask shifted and something under it looked at Ned with a steadier eye. Stannis would scowl at you and tell you that you are reckless and a Stark and that this is no place for men who do not bend. He would be right, and he would admire you for it in the dark where no one could see. Be cautious. That, too, is courage here. He left without waiting for an answer, humming in a tuneless way as if to show he was not thinking anything at all. The day made itself busy. They brought Janos Slynt to the great hall where the banners hung heavy and the light came in through colored glass to paint the floor, and the captains of the watch came in their best tabards, and each had a way of standing and a way of saying my lord that told Ned how many hands had been in their pockets lately. He sat where Robert would sit and made himself as square as the chair back. He went through the motions of courtesy with the care of a man sharpening a blade, because dull courtesy cuts nothing. He listened to each man tell him how many men he commanded, How many helms? How many spears? How many knots of rope for hanging that were kept dry and oiled and ready? He asked. Each one how many times in the last month a purse had changed hands that was not supposed to. He watched their eyes when he said the queen's name and saw a flinch in some and a hunger in others and a kind of dogged patience in a few that cheered him more than wine would have. He told them that the watch was the king's and no other's, and that the hand would be their voice until the king spoke. He told them that a man who took coin for looking away would find himself looking up from a stone floor. He told them that there would be bread for the watch and clean water, and that he would see to it. He meant it, and he knew half of them did not believe him and the other half did not know whether to. Between such business he stole an hour and went to the little house to see Caitlin. He put on a plain cloak and took only Cain with him, and they went by a way Varys had described that seemed too narrow for a man and too circuitous for a reason. But it brought them to a door where a woman with hair as black as a raven's wing and a scarlet smile let them in with a curtsy that made her bracelets chime like a small bell. Inside, the rooms were neat and the smell was of soap and the sea. And Caitlin rose from a chair with the motion of a person who had wound herself tight to keep from shaking. They did not touch at first, because touching would make the wound in the world that was between them bleed. He told her what he had done. She told him that she had not known what he would do, but that she had thought it would be something like this, because she had known him in a smaller bed and a smaller house and on a road where the dust bit teeth. She told him, without being asked, the shape of the knife and how the light had moved along it, because that memory seemed to have made itself at home in her. She did not weep when she spoke of Bran. Her mouth had the stillness of a woman who had used weeping and found it did not pay. "We must be careful," she said. "Do not hurry to the black cells. The city will do some of your work for you, if you let it. Peter cannot sit in a room without making allies. He cannot stand in a room without making enemies. The enemies might be of use. Varys will help if it helps himself." "Varys helps himself first," Ned said. "But yes, he is a tool that cut both ways." Caitlin walked to the window and looked out at the narrow street where an old man was arguing with a boy over the price of onions. She spoke without turning. "I remember Peter as a boy," she said. "He bled for a dream. He made himself soft and made himself small and bled and thought that would do. He does not forgive the world for not giving him what he bled for. He will not forgive us for seeing him bound." She turned then. "Be watchful, Ned. The Lannisters will make their move." "The Queen knows already," Ned said. "Varys will have seen to it. It is better that way." "Perhaps," she said. "Or perhaps it is only the way that it is." He left her with a promise not to be a promise, and the day was past noon when he returned to the Red Keep. The light had shifted. The courtyards had drawn into themselves the way men draw cloaks when a wind rises. A boy ran by with a message and did not look where he was going. Jory caught him by the collar and set him on his feet, and the boy made a fish's face and darted on. Ned went to the Tower of the Hand and found Varys waiting in his solar with 2 cups of wine. He did not sit. "Is the Queen angry?" "She is something like angry and something like amused," Varys said. "She thinks you are playing a game you do not know. That is how gamblers comfort themselves when a new player sits down. She has sent for Lord Commanderslyn and spoken to him in words that would make a gentler man blush and with promises that would make a crueler man drool. She has sent a rider to Lannisport. She has sent another to Casterly Rock. She has spoken with her brother in the yard. They walked as if they were speaking of the weather. Her face did that thing it does, you know, where it looks like marble that has learned to smile. The city has already divided itself into those who say you are Robert's man, and those who say you are a fool, and those who say both. It will keep dividing all night, and in the morning some of the pieces will have joined again, because that is what a city does. It is a thing like an ant hill that only looks like a castle when you stand far off." "And Robert?" Ned asked. "Hunting," Varys said, and sighed. "He will return sweaty and bloody and pleased with himself. If he took a boar, he will make jokes. If the boar escaped him, he will drink. If he took nothing at all, he will do both." Ned nodded. He could see Robert. He had seen Robert so many times that he could have drawn the man in his sleep. "Keep close to the cells," he said. "See that Peter has nothing more than what I give him. No visitors." "I am very good at keeping men apart," Varys said with melancholy. "I was born to it." The day unwound. Servants found reasons to go down corridors they did not usually go down. In the rookery, Maester Coleman's city cousin pecked at grains. The gods would give no counsel. Arya complained of the heat and of Sansa's voice and of needlework and everything else. And then she forgot all of it chasing a cat until she tore her gown and laughed so hard the seamstress cried. Sansa went with Jane Poole to walk the airy path along the outer wall and told Jane that she did not think her father ought to have done what he did, because if a man smiled often he could not be so very bad. And Jane said yes because she had only the one answer to any of Sansa's "do you think?" questions. Joffrey heard of it and laughed in a way that made men look at the ground. He went to the yard and fought 3 rounds with a wooden sword and looked toward the White Tower where his mother kept her apartments as if the tower itself would nod. The hound watched and said nothing and afterwards stood under the shade of a fig tree in the corner of the yard and drank water as if it were wine, with his throat working. Jaime Lannister smiled without his eyes and went up to the queen and down again, and then out of sight the way a blade goes in and comes out. The Septas prayed. One of Varys's little birds dropped a bundle of twigs in a gutter and cried out in surprise as they fell. The cry was like any child's cry and exactly like none. When the second bell of evening rang and the city took its breath between daylight and lamps, Robert returned. The sound of him preceded him, the bray of hunting horns, the laughter, the clatter of hooves on stone. He walked into the great hall with his shirt unlaced and his hair stuck to his brow. He had a cut on his forearm like a smile. He had not taken a boar. His face was colored with blood nevertheless where he had kissed a boar that had not been there but had been in his mind when he saw a rock he wished to conquer. "Ned!" he roared when he saw the hand. "Wine! And meat! And where is that little shit who counts my coins so I can throw them as I please?" He laughed, and the sound bounced off the rafters and came back smaller. "In your custody," Cersei said from the end of the hall where she had been waiting with a patience that was long and thin. She stepped forward as if the whole scene were a dance she had practiced. "Our hand has seen fit to lay hands on the master of coin, your grace," as if he were a cut purse at a fair. Robert's face made the change it made when a jest turned into a tale and then into a question. He swayed a little with the force of stopping the laughter. "What's this?" he said, looking from his queen to his friend. Ned stood. The hall's decorations looked like quilts in the late light. He had the sense of speaking across a river. "I have Peter Baelish under guard," he said. "He lied to my lady, putting a false charge upon Tyrion Lannister regarding a dagger used in an attack upon my son. He has made use of the king's purse for his own sport. He will stand before you and answer for it, as any man must. And you will tell me how to breathe." "Next," Cersei said softly enough that it seemed unkind to answer. Robert's mouth opened. He had the look of a man who finds he is standing in water up to his knees, where he thought he was on dry ground. "You have him where?" "In the Tower of the Hand," Ned said. "Oh," Robert said, and the sound had a tired humor in it. "Of course you do." He scrubbed at his face with the back of his wrist. "7 hells. Ned, is this needful? The man counts my coin. He turns brass into silver and silver into gold and gold into wine. He is useful. So is a mule," Ned said, "until it kicks." Robert stared at him. The anger that came up in him was visible. A flush, a tense jaw. Then it went out as if someone had thrown a pail of water on a cookfire. "I am too weary for this," he said. "I have been in the sun since morning. My head rings. Bring him in the morning. And in the morning, we will summon the Lannister and the Lannister's imp and Varys and all the rest, and put a rope around this business and pull until something comes out of the bag." Cersei's face moved like a curtain in a wind. "You will not let him sit in a Stark's private jail as if he were a thief." "He will sit where I put him," Robert said without turning. "Till morning. Then we will look at him." He took a step and then remembered himself and looked over his shoulder. "Do not make trouble in my hall, woman. I have had my fill of hunts that end in scratches." He laughed then, barking, and called for wine, and men brought it as if the cup itself were a god. The night tasted of iron. Ned went to his rooms and undid his sword belt and stood with his hand on the table for a moment as if he understood tables now better than he understood men. He thought of the council in the morning and of what would be said. He thought of Cersei's words like darts thrown with perfect shape. He thought of Robert's fatigue being so easily molded into the shape of a choice someone else would be pleased to see. He thought of a boy in a sick room at Winterfell whose body refused to wake while his spirit ran somewhere the living could not follow. He thought of a sharp-faced man in a small cell smiling as if nothing were quite real unless he could put his tongue to it and taste the hollow of the lie along the truth's curve. Sleep did not come easily. When it came, it was full of dreams where snow fell into the sea and did not melt, and a black bird with a dagger in its beak tried to cut the sea into squares to count it. He woke before dawn and went to the godswood, such as it was. A red leaf drifted upon the thin water and stuck to a stone, quivering. He did not know whether the old gods looked at him here. He had never been taught to doubt it and had learned not to expect it. He knelt all the same. The damp crawled through his hose and into his bones. When he rose, the sky had gone from black to blue, and somewhere a bell was saying 6. Jory was waiting when he returned. "A message from the Queen," he said. He held out a scroll with a ribbon that knew it was green, and the wax was stamped with a lion's head wearing a crown as if it had been born with it. Ned did not break the seal. He handed it back to Jory. "Tell the man you burned it." Jory's smile was brief and fierce. "Gladly, my lord." They brought Peter Baelish up when the sun had made his square of light into a longer bar, and this time there were 2 white cloaks in Varys and Renly and Pycelle and a half-dozen courtiers who had found reason to be near the great hall so early, as if the smell of judgment were a perfume to be worn before breakfast. The Queen was not there. Robert was on the dais with a cup and a butcher's smile for anyone who spoke to him. He had dressed in bright colors to persuade himself his mood had brightness. He had a way of hitting his thigh as if to remind himself his legs were still Here he is, Robert said when they brought Baelish forward. "Our Littlefinger. He does not look so dangerous without his purse, does he?" He laughed. Baelish bowed as well as a man could with wrists bound. "Your Grace," he said. His voice had the mildness of a man asking a favor for a friend. "It warms the heart to see you hail. I hope your hunt was instructive." "The boar was, which is more than I can say for half my counsel," Robert said. He tipped his head, inviting the jest to sting. "She says you have been put in a closet." "I've been given a quiet room to think in," Peter said, not looking at Ned. "I considered the king's wealth and worried for it. It is a habit with me." He lifted his bound hands an inch. "Forgive the fashion. It was not of my choosing." Robert scowled. "Ned says you lied to his lady." "All men lie to ladies," Baelish said. "Especially to his lady. Else there would be no songs. But if you mean did I tell her a thing that was not true because it could not be wholly true and remain useful, then I confess, your Grace, I am guilty. It is an illness with me. I cough up half-truths like phlegm." "The blade," Ned said. He stepped forward. "It was yours." "It was the king's," Peter said, and smiled, because it pleased him to have an answer that held a kernel of the fruit in it, as all fine things are. "Before you gave it away," Ned said. "You said you lost it at Joffrey's name day to the imp. That was a lie you put in my lady's mouth." "I lost it," Peter said, "and it found its way into the dwarf's hands. With or without my help, who shall say? Such things happen. The dwarf has long arms for a man so little." He lowered his voice as if sharing an intimacy with the room. "You are not angry because of the dagger, Lord Stark. You are angry because someone tried to kill your boy, and you must be angry at someone because there is no one to be angry at, and my face suits your mourning." Ned's hand tightened on nothing. He could feel the hilt of his sword where it would be if this were a different hall. "You forget your place," he said. "I never forget my place," Peter said. "I carry it with me like a purse." Robert took a long swallow of wine and wiped his mouth. "We will waste the day in words like a whore wastes kisses. I will not have it." "Peter, did you steal from my purse to buy yourself blades and beds and baubles? Answer straight." "No, your Grace," Baelish said. "Did you set a man to kill the boy of House Stark?" "No, your Grace," Baelish said. "Did you tell Lady Catelyn a tale that would see Tyrion Lannister in chains and thus bring your queen to my door with claws unsheathed while I was out trying to kill a boar that had the better of me?" Robert asked, his tone drifting into the humor that kept him from facing the heart of a matter. "Yes," Peter said, and smiled. but only because the tale was so good I could not keep it in my mouth. I spit it out. That is my flaw. There was a murmur like a hand on a drum. Ned heard it without hearing the words. He heard also the absence of one voice and looked for it. Cersei had not come to the hall. That knowledge fell like a little stone into his breast. "Gods be good," Robert said. "Ned, what would you have me do? Take off his head because he is a popinjay who likes the taste of his own words? That was not a crime the last time I looked at the tablets." "Hold him," Ned said. "Strip him of office while we look into his accounts. He has had his hand in the purse so long he thinks it is his own. Men who own things they do not own forget themselves and do stupid, dangerous things. I want him where he cannot do them." Robert scowled again, but tiredly. This city would stop for breath if we hauled all the men who forgot themselves to cells. But yes, let the master of coin be master of nothing for a fortnight. We will put a man with numbers at his shoulder. Stannis would do it, if he could be brought to it. He hates all that is pleasant, and see how the some sing. Varys, find me a mouse whose hands are clean to look at these books, and send word to Casterly Rock that the imp is to be left where he is. Wherever he is, unless he hangs himself. "Very good, your grace," Varys murmured. He had not sat during the whole business and looked as if he regretted now not having had a chair to wring his hands in. Renly looked pleased with the solution, because it left no blood on any of their hands and therefore was a thing that could be thought decent. "Release his hands," Robert said, flicking 2 fingers as if shooing a fly. "Peter, move an inch to your left and any man who lays a finger on the king's money without my leave will lose that finger. And then the other, and then the rest. Be smart. Ned, be reasonable." He looked between them and tried to twist his face into the shape of a story in which both were right and he the man who saw it. It did not fit. Cain cut the leather. Peter rubbed his wrists as if this had been a small joke that had gone on slightly too long. He did not bow again, but he gave a little inclination of the head that could have been a bow seen from a distance. And the smile he tuned like an instrument for the queen, for the courtiers, for Robert. Now he turned to Ned and made it into something that might have been called sympathy if it had not been the shape of victory. Then, as if nothing more had happened than a pause in a day of appointments, he stepped back. The council broke up like bread. Men took pieces of the day and went away to chew them. Ned stood where he was for a moment longer. Robert came down from the dais heavily. "Do not push me in my own hall," he said low, not unkindly. "I pushed because I had to," Ned said. "You have always forgiven me for doing what I think is right." "I have," Robert said, "even when I should not have." He clapped his friend's shoulder with a force that was meant to be friendly and was. "Come, drink with me and tell me of the north. Tell me of snow that do not melt and of wolves that do not whine. Tell me something that is not this place." He laughed, and in his laughter there was a plea. Ned went because there had been so few times to go when Robert asked, and because there were fewer than there had been. He drank a cup and then another, slowly. He watched his friend's face and listened to words that were at once old and new. He did not see the queen pass along the far side of the room like a cool wind in a hothouse. And he did not see Baelish speak 2 words in the mouth of a passage to a boy who carried messages and whose eyes were very black. And he did not see Janos Slint stand at a window with his hands behind his back, making a list in his head of the names of men whose loyalty he could purchase for a handful of silver and a promise of gold. But he felt the shape of such things. He was a Stark. He knew when a winter storm had shifted and would find a new door through which to enter. When he finally returned to his solar, the light had become that hour's light that sets dust dancing in the air as if it were new life. He sat and read a parchment Varys had placed upon his table, a list of accounts and sums, the script neat and cruelly small. He had Jory bring him Peter's records in boxes with leather straps and iron corners. And when the boxes came, they were heavier than they ought to have been because nothing that looks like a box of numbers ever weighs less than a box of stones. He opened one and felt the papers like stacked leaves. He smelled the expensive ink. "We will need men who can swim in this," he said. "Find me a man who knows accounts who does not owe Peter money." Jory scratched his beard. "That may be a very small man, my lord." "Then we will find several small men," Ned said, "and put them together." The door opened and Arya slipped in as if she had learned how to become a shadow. She had a smear of something dark on her cheek, and there was a pride in her face that meant she had done something she ought not to have. "You were rude to that man," she announced. "The one who smiles like a cat who wants to sit on your leg and scratch you at the same time. Septim Ordained says it was unseemly to bind a lord in your own house unless he is a traitor-proved or a northern robber of sheep." "I will speak to Septim Ordained," Ned said, weary. "What have you done to your cheek?" "Cat," Arya said, as if that explained the world. He did not like being chased. "Cats rarely do," Ned said. He felt some part of him become lighter because she was there. Because in rooms where there were children, the air was not only made for plotting. "Washington, then go to your sister and ask her to walk with you." "She will not," Arya said with certainty. "She is angry because Jane says the Queen's hair looks like poured gold, and I said it looks like horse piss in sunlight." "Then ask Jory to have someone take you both to see the armorers," Ned said, making a small concession to Hope. "Men who hammer iron can be useful in stories they do not understand." Arya grinned. "I like the smell of the street of steel," she said. "It smells like men working. This place smells like men talking." She ran out any way a cat runs when it has been forgiven. Evening fell again. Lights came to the keep and to the city. 100, 1,000 pricks of flame. Caitlin sat at a small table with her knife on the table near her left hand and ate bread that had been baked this morning and broth that had been simmered all day and did not taste it. She listened to the house around her like a mirror listens to the room it reflects. She thought of Peter as a boy, of the way his hand had gone to his shirt after the duel to press against the wound, and she thought of how the blood had seeped through his fingers, and of the sound he had made, a breath more than a cry. She had not loved him then. She did not love him now. But she remembered that boys became men by not forgiving the world for having hurt them, and that sometimes the wound was the best part of them because it kept them honest to their own story even when all other honesty had failed. She did not know if that was true of Peter. She knew only that he would not sit in a room with his hands in his lap and let the day pass him clean. She was not wrong. In the rooms where he could be watched, Peter Baelish watched back. He learned the names of the men who brought him food without asking. He learned which foot the guard outside placed down first when he turned at the end of the passage. He learned the way the light came to his square in the morning and the angle of the shadow in the afternoon and what that meant for the time when a man's attention lagged. He considered his own history as if it were a city map. He found an alley where he could run. He smiled when the boy with the black eyes came by with a pitcher of water, because the boy did not look up but changed hands with the pitcher in a way that said his left had something his right did not. He did not speak to the boy. He did not need to. Not yet. In the Queen's apartments, Cersei sat at a dressing table and watched herself in a mirror framed with gold leaves. Her maid with the soft mouth brushed her hair, and the hair fell and fell. She had already sent 3 messengers and had answers from 2. Jaime came in without knocking and leaned against the window embrasure and looked out because he liked the angle of the light on his own face against the dark glass. "He thinks he has done a brave thing," Cersei said, and her mouth tilted. "He has," Jaime said. "It is the kind of brave thing that makes other men want to push him downstairs." "Would you?" Cersei asked. "Not today," Jaime said. "He is a man who can be brought to understand the shape of the knife in the dark when he holds it. He does not like the dark. That is his trouble. He thinks the world will be visible if he squints." "You should have killed him in the streets last night," Cersei said, and meant it for the length of the breath in which she said it and not past. "It would have been simple. The city likes a good stabbing. It is a tale they understand." "And the king?" Jaime asked. "The king would have understood it, too. And then we would both be dead, which is a tale of a different length." He smiled. "I will kill him one day, or he will kill me. It will not be in the dark. It will be in a room like this, with someone washing their hair and thinking of something else." Cersei did not turn. She watched herself blink. "He has interrupted the only man around my husband who keeps him blind in a way that helps me," she said. "Peter plays the king like a harp and says it is a drum. Now there will be numbers, and numbers are different for men. You cannot smile at numbers or show them your breasts. They sit there and are what they are, like stones." Jaime laughed. "You can throw stones at someone's head, and Ned Stark will pick them up and pile them into a wall," Cersei said. She rose and the maid stepped back with her hands flat to keep from touching what she had made. Cersei crossed the room. "I will not let him make a habit of laying hands on men who are mine." "He will not do it again," Jaime said softly. "Once is a habit for him. Twice would be a lesson learned. And he does not teach himself new lessons. He refuses the book as long as he can." He tilted his head. "Besides, he is not wrong. Peter lies when it suits him. So do we. The difference is in the wine and in the listener." Cersei's eyes were a green he enjoyed. He stepped toward her and she came into his step. They did not speak for a while. When they did, it was of war and of travelers, and of the way a city moves when a pot is lifted from its lid and a little steam escapes. Before midnight, Varys came with the look of a man who has seen a thing that he will not tell you until you have given him a chair he likes. Nests of men gathered in corners to talk. The name of Baelish traveled the ceiling like a fly that had learned to read. Some said the hand had overstepped. Some said the queen would feed him to her lions. She had no lions. But the city believed she had a pair that slept at the foot of her bed and came when she whistled. Some said the king had been made to look small in his own hall. Some said it would all be forgotten by morning. Some said that nothing was ever forgotten, only pushed aside. Morning came. The sky had the color of old iron. The bells said prime, and the king sat at council with a platter of bread and salt beef and said, "Make this quick." Peter sat at the table in his accustomed chair and looked a little amused, as if the chair had been waiting for him and would tell tales about whoever sat in it when he was away. Varys smelled of expensive soap. Renly sat yawning and hid it with the back of his hand. Pycelle had the color of wilted kale. Ned had slept less than he had the night before. He had a list, and the list had 3 names on it who could be believed until they proved themselves liars. He had a list of figures, and the figures did not add. How could they? Because the figures never do if you expect them to. He also had a memory that was more valuable than either list, because it was of Catelyn's face the first time she had held a child, and how it had gone from fear to fear again, because joy is a thing that makes fear more evident. They spoke of the coin. They spoke of the watch. They spoke of grain shipments held up in the Blackwater by a man who had counted badly and a man who had counted too well. They spoke of a letter from Dragonstone that contained no invitation. They spoke of a messenger from the Vale who had lost a horse and was looking for another. Through it all, Peter's fingertips made delicate little sounds on the polished wood. A tap, like a spider's feet. He said little. When he did, it was exactly what was required and no more, as if he were trimming a candle wick. Varys watched Ned when Peter spoke and watched Peter when Ned did. And Pycelle watched the space in front of his own nose and breathed. When they were done with the business that could be done in daylight, Robert rose. "No more of this," he said. "I will hunt again in 3 days if I can find my goddamned boots." He left them to their own silence. The queen did not come to the council. When she wanted something, she sent it down the passage with a name on it. Her absence was a presence. Afterward, Peter came to Ned at the door as if nothing had occurred that mattered between them. "My lord," he said, smiling with exactly the right amount of sorrow. "I wish we were not at odds." He leaned in. "You are playing honest chess with men who use backgammon pieces and cheat at cards. If I cannot be your friend, I will be someone else's. My heart breaks in the night at the thought, but it will mend. My mind is not a board for others to set their pieces on," Ned said. "Keep away from mine and I will keep away from yours." Peter's eyes crinkled at the corners. "You have no pieces," he said. "You have men. Men bleed. Pieces do not." Ned left him there with the image, because some images are made to be left. He went to the tower and sent for Sandor Clegane. When the hound came, he came like a man who had no patience with stairs. "You send for me," he said. "I do not come running to anyone." His mouth was a hard line under his scar. "You are the prince's dog," Ned said, letting the word be a word and not a knife. "But you have teeth that tear whatever is in front of you when you choose. There may come a time when the city runs in the streets. When it does, I want you to know where to run that does not take you past the queen." Sandor's laugh was as harsh as one of the city's iron wheels on a stone chip. "You put no leash on me, Stark. If the streets run, I will run where the blood smells fresh." And he left, because men like him like to have the last word and pretend they do not care that they do. Ned let him go. There were too many men to bind, and the rope was never long enough. He bent his head to the figures again. He sent Jory to speak to the captains again. He told himself that the river would go out with the tide and take the smell with it for a few hours. He remembered the sound of winter in pines. 2 days later, the gods corrected him. A rumor moved through the city that any who went to the Tower of the Hand to petition for grain would find a fair measure weighed with fair weights and a cup of water and no hand outstretched for a bribe. It was not true, not holy, but it was true enough that people came. Men with sore feet queued outside the yard. Women with their hair bound in cloth stood with children on their hips and watched the sky for no reason except that their necks were tired. The watch came to see what happened when people tried to be fed and not cheated. Janos Slint arrived, and his men took a space near the gate, and the air grew tense. A boy with quick fingers tried to lift a purse and was sent tumbling by a butcher who had had enough of bad luck. 3 men shouted at once, saying different things, and none of the 3 could hear the other. The line bent as if it were a stick soaked in water. Jory was there with 10 men. He made his voice large without making it angry. "Back," he said, each in turn. He did not put his hand on his sword. Still, someone in the crowd threw a stone. It struck the wall. The noise it made was the kind of noise that forgets itself and breathes. A second stone followed, struck a gold cloak's helm. A third struck Jory on the shoulder. He spun, and his hand was on his hilt without his command. Janos Slint took a step. The gold cloaks set their round shields forward, a half circle of yellow. Someone screamed. Someone always screamed, whether anything had happened or not. Ned reached the yard to see the moment before the breaking. He saw Jory's jaw set and Slint's eyes narrow, and a woman raise a fist because someone had jostled the child at her breast, and the jostling mattered more to her than any king's piece. He stepped into the space between the shields. He put his hands up. His voice carried because the yard had been built for men to be heard in. "I am Ned Stark," he said. "I am the king's hand. You will not throw stones in the king's yard. If you have come for bread, you will have bread. If you have come for trouble, you will go away hungry." It was not eloquent. It did not need to be. He had said things like that before to men with axes and to boys with sticks. The line breathed. The watch held. Jory stepped back. Janos Slint measured him and measured the crowd and measured the day and calculated the best way to sell it to himself later. He grunted. The captains who had sat in his hall and heard his words now saw him with his hand open and his voice steady. And they saw a thing they could use to stiffen their own spines with. The line reformed. If not straight, then straight enough. Stones went back to the ground. The woman with the child lifted the child up and shook it gently to make it laugh, because then the day would go on. Afterward, in the cool of the stair, Jory came and stood with Ned and said, "You are making enemies with kindness, my lord." "No," Ned said. "Kindness makes none. It only makes the ones you already have curse the louder. The enemies come from something else." "What else?" Jory asked. He had sweat on his temples like rain. "From a man's sense that he has not been paid what he deserves for what he imagines he has done," Ned said. He did not know if the words were true, but he loved them for the moment because they made the shape of the problem seem briefly comprehensible. Word of the fair measure rumor reached the queen and made her smile in a way that made the maid with the soft mouth flinch. Word of Janos's compliance reached Peter Baelish and made him think of 3 things at once, none of which he had thought that morning before. Word of the quiet in the yard reached Varys and made him shake his head at the parts of men that still reached toward the hope that a thing might be as plain as a loaf in a hand. Word of it reached Robert and passed through him like wind through a shutter, making a sound but not a change. When night came again, a knife moved in a different alley, for a different purpose. A man who had been told to make a noise and be caught making it was caught making it. The city slept, then woke, then slept again. The river climbed its limit and fell back obediently. In the Tower of the Hand, Ned laid his palm on the cold of the window lintel and listened to the city like a great beast drawing breath. He could not see the next turn. He never had needed to. But here, in this place, the next turn saw him. On the 3rd day, Caitlin left the little house quietly before dawn and slipped through a marketplace where the fish were still stiff with night, and the women who would argue over them were not yet on the stones. The woman with the raven hair watched her go from the shutter as one watches a gull commit itself to air. She walked to the river with her cloak held close and her hood down, because to be a woman alone with a hood up in King's Landing was to say a thing she did not want to say. She went to the dock where a riverman with a bent back had been paid to forget her face and found that he had not forgotten, because forgetting does not come with coin for men like him. He nodded to her and spat neatly over the side and offered his hand. She stepped down. The boat did not move. The water did. She did not look back until the last wood of the city fell behind a turn. Then she looked, and the city looked like what it is from such a vantage. A pile of comforts and crimes that a river can wash and never clean. Ned had known she would go. He had told her not to, and had known he was talking to the part of her that did not make her decisions. She was going to the Vale. She would be a sister again, and in every way that would help and in some that would not. He had worried for her, and the worry was a coin that he could not spend and could not save. He set it on the shelf with the others. He went to see Peter again because he wanted to tell his face that it had not won. Peter sat with his hands folded and a book open on the bench beside him, as if someone had just left him mid-sentence. He looked up and smiled the way priests smile when a generous man comes into the septry. "My Lord Hand," he said, "it is kind of you to remember me in my loneliness." "You are alone," Ned said. "Do not forget it." "I am never alone," Peter said cheerfully. "I am with my thoughts, and my thoughts are many and pay good company to one another." He closed the book with 2 fingers. "Caitlin is leaving the city. Does she think I do not know that? Ah, be calm. I know, because I would have sent her myself, if I could. She is safer in the Eyrie. Lisa is a woman who builds walls out of air and calls them proof. She will hold your wife tight because she is the only thing more precious to Lisa than the story she has told herself about her son. You think you can reach through her fear and take what you came for? Perhaps you can. Perhaps I will buy a ship and call it Patience." Ned made himself still. "The next time your mouth opens my lady's name in it, I will give you to the black cells." He meant it and knew that this, more than any of the other punishments, moved Peter, because Peter was a man who needed the light on his face to know that he was alive. Baelish lifted his hands a half-span, palms outward. "No more ladies," he said lightly. "Not in conversation. You have my oath as a man who knows the weight of words." "Your oaths are birds," Ned said. "No sooner set down than they fly." Peter looked at him for a long moment then, and there was something like curiosity in the look. "What do you think you are doing, Eddard?" he asked. "Truly, if you cut away at the vines that have grown over the city because you think that beneath them there is still a statue worth seeing, you will find that the vines were holding the statue together. The moment you say, 'This is the law breaks.' Men here obey what keeps them fed or frightened. I can keep them fed. The Queen can keep them frightened. What can you do?" "I can keep them from believing that we are all liars," Ned said. Peter's smile returned. "Ah, that is lovely. You must have been hell to kiss when you were young." He tilted his head. "Very well. Keep me here. Count your coins. Feed the watch with bread rather than promises. Bread is dearer. Promises are cheap and have better taste." He leaned back. "I am not your enemy, you know. I am no one's enemy, not even my own. I am only a man who has learned the game and has chosen not to leave the board while there are still pieces to move." "You are a man who thinks he moves the board," Ned said. He turned. "Enjoy your thoughts. When I have time, I will count your lies. They must be as numerous as your coins." He left the room with the sense that he had put a stone down that would be in his way tomorrow. He went to the window and looked out at the city and at the sky that was piling up clouds like dirty linen. He thought he smelled rain. The bells were quiet. He could hear, faintly, the cry of a boy selling something, and the call had the rhythm of the river, and his heart answered it with a dull, steady beat that did not belong to this place. Time thickened. Some days moved with long steps, some with short. Bits of news arrived like birds landing, hard, soft, erratic. Word that the Lannister lions had been seen at the gates more often than usual. Word that a baker had given away bread for a day in a fit of piety and had been found the next with his door broken and his flour scooped with dirty hands. Word that Renly had been seen at dawn in the yard speaking to Ser Barristan Selmy with a seriousness that looked odd on him and made him handsomer. Word that Stannis had written to the king and that Robert had flung the letter into the fire without breaking the seal. Word that Littlefinger had resumed his office, with supervision, because there was no one who could, in so short a time, decide which purse to cut and which to build and make the city keep moving. Ned gritted his teeth and let it be, because there was a war worse than the one he wanted to fight, and it was the war of keeping things from falling apart before you had gathered the rope. He slept badly. He dreamt more of snow over water. He dreamt of swords planted in a field like a crop. He dreamt of a room where a baby's cries were the only sound, and he woke with an ache he recognized and did not feed. On the 8th day after the arrest and the release and the counting that was no counting, the rains came. They came as if a giant had turned a bucket over, and the city huddled and let itself be washed. The streets took on the look of rivers. The river took on the look of a road. Ned stood in the doorway of the Tower of the Hand and looked out and had the childish thought that all of the city's sins would run away with the water. They did not. They soaked into the stones and would bloom again when the sun returned. Jory came up the wet stair and shook himself like a dog. "There's a man wants words," he said quietly. "He speaks like he has been told to say what he says, and is afraid he will not say it right." "Bring him," Ned said. The man was small, and his hair was plastered to his head in points. He held his cap in his hands as if it had a tongue and might speak for him. He licked his lips. "My lord," he said, "there's talk. I was told to bring it to you if I heard it. They say the queen will move on the watch. They say she has a purse larger than yours. They say she means to have the Tower of the Hand under her own eyes by week's end. They say a great deal," Ned said. He put his hand on the man's shoulder. "Who told you to bring it?" The man's eyes slid to Jory and back and then to the rain. "A man with no beard," he said, which described half the city. He said to say, "The mice are climbing." "I don't know what that means. I don't like mice." Ned did not like them either. He thanked the man and gave him coin and watched how he weighed it, carefully and honestly. He sent Jory for Varys, and for a captain of the watch he thought he could rouse without needing to remind him that there was heavier coin than promises. He stood with the rain, feeling it chill his skin where it had slid down his hair behind his ears. When Varys came, he came dry. The rain had noticed him and stepped aside. "My little birds sing," Varys said, "but even I cannot always determine if they sing to me or to the cat." "Is the queen buying the watch?" Ned asked. "The queen always buys the watch," Varys said. "The question is whether anyone else is selling it at the same time. You have fed them bread. That is a poor rival to wine, but it fills a belly better, and a full belly slows a hand that would otherwise stretch for a coin. You have a day, perhaps two, before the queen makes a move large enough that it must be answered. She has waited because she does not like to make the first move. It makes her feel as if someone else had the idea. And what will she do?" Ned said. He could imagine a dozen shapes. 15. "She will come to take the watch under the crown in the name of safety and make it a question of loyalty," Varys said, folding his hands. "She will say that you have overreached and put hands upon a man who is the king's more than he is yours. She will smile. It will look like winter sunlight. She will bring such men as will make the point without drawing swords, and swords enough behind them to make it not be argued. She will not find it easy. You have made it less easy by taking time to speak to the captains. But it will be done if no one else moves." "Who else might?" Ned asked. Varys looked at him as if measuring the size of his heart in his chest. "I do not know," he said, which might have been true or might have been the one thing he had decided not to tell. "Perhaps a brother, perhaps a horse lord, perhaps a boy with a dog. King's Landing is full of men who think this is their moment to become someone else. None of them notice that moments are like rain. You think you can catch it. You can only get wet. You talk too much for a man who says he does not know," Ned said, and let himself almost smile. "Go, put your birds in the rafters. I will not be surprised." He was not. The queen came on the morning after the rain ended while the city still smelt of damp stone and hesitations. She was all gold and green with a cloak that made its own weather, and behind her came 2 of the Kingsguard and a slice of the watch that had been polished until it shone, and a set of men with the look of casterly gold about them that no bath could wash away. Janos Slint came also, and his face was a carefully inked parchment. They came to the yard, and Cersei called in a voice that needed no bellman to carry it. "Lord Stark," she said, "you take much upon yourself. I have come for what is mine." Ned came down the stair with Jory at his shoulder and Tomard on the other side, and a dozen men in the yard who had been eating bread a moment before and were now tasting iron. He went to the space where the rain had made a dark on the stone that had not yet dried. He made his voice nothing fancy. "If you have come for the king's peace," he said, "you will have it." "I have come for the watch," Cersei said. "They are the king's. You have been feeding them as if they were dogs hovering at your door, and they have licked your hand. That stops." "The watch are the king's," Ned said, "and I am the king's. They have been guarding the Tower of the Hand in the king's name. If you have business with them, take it to the king." "The king is at his hunt," Cersei said. "The hand presumes too much when the king is away. I will not leave the safety of my son to your northern notions." She smiled then, and it was that winter sunlight. "And I will not let whores ring bells over my walls to bring fishwives to my gates." As if all the city were a September. "The watch will return to the barracks. The captains will report to the Lord Commander. The Lord Commander will report to me." "And where would I appear in this arrangement?" Ned asked, because sometimes the best way to keep your feet was to ask a question and make others look at theirs. "You would continue to hold your keys and sit in your chair and count your numbers and write your letters," Cersei said. "You would be the hand that does what it is told to do." She looked past him, at the men. "Lay down your spears," she said to them. "Your hand forgets himself. Your queen remembers you." Jory took a half step. Janos Slint took none. He stood with his belly out. The watch had their eyes on him, and he had his eyes on the queen. There was a moment when the morning held its breath. A moment when one could have heard one drop of the leftover rainwater fall from an eave to the flagstones. Then someone moved. It was not Jory or Janos or one of Cersei's whites or one of Ned's. It was the Hound. He had come to the yard in the wake of the queen and had stood with a disinterest that was a mask he wore better than any man. He took one step forward and spat in the space where the wet stone made a dark. "What does the boy want?" he asked in his rasp. "Ask the boy what he wants." Joffrey had been behind his mother, sitting a horse as if the horse were a throne and he had been born with a saddle under him. Now he put his hand on the pommel with his thumb like a prince and said loudly, "I want order." He looked at the watch. "My mother speaks for me. Do as she says." The watch made a sound like cloth heavy with water being lifted. Men shifted their grips. One man coughed and wished he had not. Ned felt the PE of the moment tilt. He raised his hand. "This will go to the king," he said. "If you take it upon yourselves to move 1 inch in my yard on the order of any voice but the king's or mine, understand that you are making a choice you do not get to take back." Cersei's eyes were narrow and her mouth was a bowstring. "He threatens you with honor," she said to the men. "Do not be afraid. Honor will not draw blood unless it cuts its own wrist." Janos Slint cleared his throat. "The queen speaks with the prince's voice," he said. "The prince will be king." He had found his chance to flatter and took it with both hands. "The watch obeys the crown. The crown will rest heavy on a head with a broken neck," a voice said from the wall. It was one of the old captains whom Ned had fed beer and listened to when the man told the same story twice. The man had a scar that made his mouth look crooked when he said long words. He said no more. He did not need to. The laugh that followed was not a laugh. It was the thing that keeps men from killing each other because killing is noisy and you cannot hear yourself think after. Ned stepped forward and into the moment and set his weight where he meant to set it. "Janos Slint," he said, "if you move 1 man from this yard without the king's order, you will answer for it to me." Janos's mustache twitched. He weighed bread and coin and a queen and a hand and the smell of rain and the sound of his own name being spoken in a voice that did not ask. He made the other choice than the one Cersei had thought he would make because men are not sums, and because he liked to show that he had his own page in the book. He bowed. It was small. "Very well," he said. "We will wait upon the king." Cersei's face did not move. She had practiced not moving it. She took the reins of her horse as if she had not lost a thing. She turned the horse, and in that turning let the lesson be that she would not forget this, and that no one who had taught it would eat well for a week when she could stop them eating. "You will regret this," she said to Ned without looking back. "I regret everything I do in this city," Ned said. "There are no right choices. There are only choices, and this is mine." When she was gone and the watch had gone with her and the yard had resumed the sound of men learning a little at a time how to obey and to stand, Jory let out a breath he had been holding. "That was close," he said. "They will come again," Ned said. He felt the closeness of the last inch of something that had not happened and knew that he would feel it again. "Next time they will bring more than words. Words are the most dangerous things," Jory said. "They breed." "That they do?" Ned said, and looked toward the distant windows of the tower where the Queen would be and tried to imagine the shape of the next move. He thought of the way Peter had tapped his fingers like a spider testing its web. He thought of Varys's sigh, of Renly's lazy cleverness, of Pycelle's heavy breathing. He thought of Robert, who tried so hard to be the man he had been that he forgot the man he was. He thought of the North, where snow is honest and men are less comfortable lying to themselves because the cold makes the lies crack. Rainwater dripped from the eaves like the last words of a letter. The city was damp and quiet in the way that meant it was gathering itself to be loud again. A ship in the river shifted, its ropes straining and easing. The smell of fish and iron and whetstone mingled. Far off, a bell struck the hour and then another answered it, making a beating of sounds across the quarter. In the Tower of the Hand, a ledger lay open, and a drop of rain that had found its way inside through a crack fell on a figure and blurred it until it could have been anything. In the cell where he had thought his thoughts, Peter Baelish sat in a different chair and made a list in his mind of the names of the men he would need to speak to next, and the order in which he would speak to them, and the names of their wives because wives were often the better path. In the Queen's apartments, Cersei sat at a table where a map was spread and placed a finger on the city, and then lifted the finger and shook it as if to dislodge a drop. In the yard, Arya balanced on one foot on the low wall and told herself a story in which she was a cat and a sword at the same time. And above all of it, the sky lay low, and the wind that would bring the next weather had not yet decided whether it would. That night, Ned went to the Godswood again and stood under the hacked weirwood and felt that he and it were the same. Something undone, something that remembered what it had been. He said words under his breath and did not care that the red leaves did not stir because the wind was elsewhere. He went back to his bed and lay on his back and counted his own breaths because counting was the only truth he could find that night that did not seem like a story some man had made to comfort himself. He slept. When he woke, there was a whisper at his door, and when he opened it there was Varys with eyes that had learned a new thing in the night and were careful not to tell it until they were asked. "There has been a meeting," Varys said, and let the words lie like a piece placed on a board, "and a rider, and another, and a good morning to you, my Lord Hand." "Say it," Ned said. Varys tilted his head. "The Queen has sent to Casterly Rock. The Queen has sent to the rock not for men but for paper. She means to put the watch in livery that suits her colors, and to pay them with a coin that would be less heavy in the purse and more heavy in the hand. She will make the watch hers not by ordering it but by feeding it, and your bread will seem thin when set beside her meat. Then I will feed them better," Ned said. Varys smiled with genuine sadness. "You always say that," he said. "You think men eat bread. They eat fear, and hope, and habit. She will sell them habit. Then break the habit," Ned said. Varys bowed his head as if receiving a benediction. "I hope you can," he said, "for all our sakes." The city woke again, and with it the game that men played whose names would be turned into verses or curses depending on who won. Ned moved through his day as a man moves through a room where the furniture has been rearranged in the dark. He was careful. He thought of the North, where careful is the difference between living through the first winter night and dying of it. He thought of words that had weight and men who had little. He thought of a boy asleep in Winterfell who might wake and find a world that had been bent while he lay in his other life. He thought of Catelyn on a riverboat moving toward a sister who might not be heart-whole and who might be the only boat that kept from sinking when the rest of them did. When he put his hand on the table, it was steady. When he spoke to the captains, his voice was steady. When he looked at Peter across the council table, his eyes were steady. He could be steady. He would be steady as stone. He was a Stark. He could do nothing else. The South would twist around him and break itself if it must. He would stand. For now, he stood. For now, the next move waited. It would not wait long, but for a few breaths more, the city held. The rain had left it cleaner by a fraction only men like Ned would notice. The wind turned. The window in his chamber clicked in its frame. In 1,000 rooms, men and women drew in breath to speak, and for a beat between the breath and the word, there was peace.